Organophosphate pesticides are used to kill pest populations in agriculture. They are of concern to both scientists and regulators because they work by irreversibly blocking an enzyme that's critical to nerve function in both insects and humans. Even at relatively low levels, organophosphates may be most hazardous to the brain development of fetuses and young children. Urine samples of pregnant women can be analyzed for the metabolites of organophosphate pesticides in order to compare exposure. 3 separate recent studies have delivered compelling data that links in utero exposure to organophosphate pesticides with problems in early cognitive development. Effects were seen in memory, reasoning, and IQ. The studies were part of the first phase of the Children's Centers for Environmental Health and Disease Prevention research program. Children in the highest exposure group showed a 7-point decrease in IQ compared to children in the lowest exposure group. These effects are likely to have implications on long-term academic success. While research on the correlation between organophosphate pesticides and cognitive development is relatively new, advancements in toxicology continue, and it is possible that more long-term effects will be discovered. This simple graph clearly shows the difference in organophosphate metabolites in the urine of pregnant women who eat organic produce compared to those who do not. Metabolite amounts in women who eat organically were nearly 1/10 the amount of those found in women who consume conventional produce. Children of mothers who do not eat organic are more likely to exceed the Environmental Protection Agency's safety threshold for organophosphate pesticides. A study of women living in an agricultural community of Salinas Valley, California, suggested that in utero exposure to organophosphate pesticides may result in low birth weights as well as shorter gestational periods. Shortened gestational periods were most clearly related to increasing exposure during the latter part of pregnancy. This is most likely due to the fact that organophosphate pesticides depress cholinesterase and acetylcholine stimulates contractions of the uterus. Studies regarding organophosphate pesticides and birth weights are not always conclusive. The cause of this inconsistent data could be the availability and inappropriate use of biomarkers to determine absorbed doses of organophosphate pesticides. The pesticides are quickly metabolized and excreted from the body, so a one-time cross-sectional measurement of biomarkers is questionable. Although studies regarding organophosphate pesticides and in utero exposure are fairly recent and undeveloped, the findings are enough to suggest there may be a cause for alarm. The safest way to ensure the health of developing infants is for pregnant mothers to try to reduce exposure to organophosphate pesticides. Here are a few ways to limit exposure. Organic produce is grown without the use of pesticides. As previously shown, choosing to eat organically significantly reduces the amount of organophosphate metabolite found in the body. Organic produce is easy to spot because it is placed in a separate area from the conventional produce and is required to have the organic seal labeled on the product. If a spouse or other close family member works with pesticides, it is vital that they remove their clothing before entering their home. All laundering of protective wear should be done separately from household laundry. If you live on or near a farm, be sure to keep windows tightly shut during pesticide spraying. Perhaps the easiest way for everyone to limit the amount of organophosphate pesticides they ingest is to clean produce before consumption. Fruits and vegetables can be safely cleaned with distilled water or diluted vinegar and a vegetable brush. While it is true that pesticides help increase crop growth by destroying the neurological system of pests, they could be having the same effect on our future children. Until there is conclusive data on how harmful or safe organophosphate pesticides may be, the safest option is to try to limit exposure, especially for expecting mothers. The steps to limiting exposure are simple, but the benefits could mean better cognitive health for your future children.